something seriously major just happened between the BRICS and EU in Africa.
China is now the richest country in the world.
Ethiopia and Egypt have been invited to join BRICS. We know that there were other African countries who have that same ambition.
Nigeria, one of Africa's prominent countries, has expressed its intention to join BRICS.
African governments themselves said, we are tired of aid and charity. We want to do trade. We want to be treated like partners. The Chinese came along and said, great, we don't do aid and charity. We want to do business with you.
Global Gateway will mobilize 300 billion euros till 2027.
Now, the US and Europe are answering back with their own infrastructure initiatives to counter China, but African experts are skeptical.
So, have you ever wondered how China quietly rose to claim its place as Africa's top trading partner, surpassing the EU? Curious about the clash between the EU and China for dominance in Africa's economic landscape, and how in the world is BRICS expansion into Africa about to reshape the continent's destiny? As these questions linger in your mind, let's journey together into the heart of Africa's economic battleground. Imagine the vast expanse of trade routes stretching across continents, where nations vie for economic dominance like players on a global chessboard. In this intricate game, a new move has been made, one that's sending shockwaves through the established order. China, a cornerstone of the BRICS coalition, has quietly risen to claim its place as Africa's largest trading partner, surpassing the long-standing influence of the European Union. In the dance of commerce, numbers speak volumes. Last year, China's trade with Africa hit a staggering $282.92 billion, a figure that not only showcases China's economic might, but also reshapes the landscape of international trade. This steady ascent is not merely a coincidence, but a result of strategic partnerships and economic diplomacy meticulously crafted over time. Delving deeper into the numbers reveals a story of interconnectedness. Key players like South Africa, Angola, and the Democratic Republic of Congo contribute significantly to this rapidly growing trade relationship. And on the other side of the coin, Nigeria stands tall as the largest buyer of Chinese goods, fueling the engine of commerce that drives this economic powerhouse. But what does this mean for Africa? The African Export-Import Bank paints a vivid picture. Asia, led by the economic giants of China and India, now stands at the helm as Africa's primary trading partner. It's a shift that marks a new chapter in the continent's economic narrative, one where traditional alliances are challenged and new opportunities emerge on the horizon. As we navigate this ever-changing landscape, it's crucial to understand the driving forces behind these groundbreaking shifts. Join us as we unravel the complexities of BRICS influence and explore how China's economic prowess is reshaping the destiny of nations across the African continent. To understand what led to the divide between the EU and Africa, here are 4 events that led to the breakup. Number 1. Trade policies. First off, African nations weren't happy with the way the EU was doing business. They felt like the EU's trade policies were giving unfair advantages to European farmers, flooding African markets with cheap produce and making it tough for African farmers to make a living. Additionally, some African countries felt like they were being pushed into signing trade deals that didn't really benefit them, leaving them feeling shortchanged. It was like trying to negotiate a fair trade, but always ending up with the short end of the stick. Number 2. Development aid. Imagine the EU as a generous neighbor offering to help fix up your house, but with some strings attached. African countries have accepted aid from the EU, but they've often felt like it came with conditions that put European interests first. It's like agreeing to let your neighbor help renovate your kitchen, only to find out they want to hire their own expensive contractors and use materials that don't quite suit your needs. Plus, there's the issue of whether the aid actually makes a difference. African leaders have raised concerns that EU aid often misses the mark, failing to tackle the real issues causing poverty and underdevelopment. It's like trying to fix a leaky roof with a band-aid. Sure, it might help in the short term, but it won't solve the underlying problem. Number 3. Security and conflict resolution. African countries have continuously criticized the EU for its approach to security and conflict resolution on the continent. While the EU has been involved in peacekeeping and conflict resolution efforts in various African regions, such as the Sahel and the Horn of Africa, there's a perception that its interventions are sometimes driven more by European interests than by the needs and priorities of African nations. African countries have raised concerns about the EU's involvement in security and conflict resolution efforts on the continent. While the EU has stepped in to help with peacekeeping and resolving conflicts, there's a feeling among African nations that these interventions prioritize European interests over their own. It's like having a neighbor who decides to mow your lawn but only focuses on the parts they can see from their window, ignoring the overgrown bushes in your backyard. And number 4, political dialogue and partnership. Imagine you're planning a dinner party with a friend, but every time you suggest a dish, they veto it and insist on their own menu. That's how some African leaders feel about their relationship with the EU when it comes to political dialogue and partnership. Despite efforts to foster cooperation through events like the Africa-EU Summit, the EU often calls the shots and dictates the terms of engagement. It's like trying to have a conversation where one person does all the talking and decides what's best for everyone without considering different perspectives. African countries are simply calling for a more equal partnership, akin to planning that dinner party where both hosts have a say in the menu. They believe that true partnership requires mutual respect and understanding, with African voices being given greater weight in decision-making processes that affect the continent. It's about recognizing Africa's diversity and agency and ensuring that all parties have a seat at the table when it comes to shaping the future of their shared interests and goals. Finally, a partnership based on mutual respect and gains. This isn't just about growing its economic muscle. It's also about reshaping the global stage to better suit Africa's needs. For too long, Africa has felt sidelined in international affairs. But with BRICS, there's a sense of inclusion and representation. China, a key player in BRICS, has been ramping up its investments across Africa, signaling a strong commitment to partnership and development. This isn't just about pouring money into traditional sectors like construction and mining. It's about embracing new opportunities in logistics, technology, renewable energy, and finance. Take a look at the numbers. In the first half of 2023 alone, China pumped over $1.8 billion into Africa, a significant increase from previous years. This isn't just a financial injection. It's a strategic move that reflects China's deepening interest in Africa's growth story. Chinese investment isn't just changing skylines, it's transforming lives and economies across the continent. With infrastructure projects worth over $400 billion, China is leaving an indelible mark on Africa's development landscape, aligning its efforts with grand initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, aimed at fostering global connectivity and prosperity. For Africa, this isn't just about receiving handouts. It's about forging meaningful partnerships that drive sustainable development. BRICS offers a platform where African nations can engage as equals, shaping policies and initiatives that benefit their people. With China leading the charge, Africa isn't just a bystander in global affairs. It's becoming a key player, leveraging its resources and potential to chart a brighter future. As BRICS expands its reach and influence, Africa stands to gain, tapping into new opportunities and pathways for growth in a rapidly changing world. As BRICS, with China at the forefront, extends its reach into Africa, Chinese investment emerges as a pivotal force shaping the continent's economic destiny. Picture it like a grand architectural blueprint, where each investment is a cornerstone, laying the foundation for a more diverse and technologically advanced African economy. For 14 consecutive years, China has held the reins as Africa's leading trade partner, signaling a seismic shift in economic economic dynamics. The bilateral trade between China and Africa, now standing tall at a towering $282 billion, speaks volumes about the deepening economic bond between these two regions. It's akin to a bustling marketplace where goods and ideas flow freely, fostering mutual growth and prosperity. Delving into the numbers, the China-Africa Research Initiative paints a vivid picture of the exponential growth in Chinese foreign direct investment, FDI, in Africa. From a modest $75 million back in 2003, the flow of investment has surged to a staggering $5 billion by 2021. This meteoric rise in investment signifies more than just financial transactions. It embodies China's strategic commitment to the African continent's development journey. Across various African nations, Chinese investments act as catalysts, igniting economic expansion and laying the groundwork for sustainable progress. It's akin to planting seeds of prosperity, nurturing them with care, and witnessing them flourish into vibrant economic ecosystems.
Foreign ministers of the BRICS group of nations have met to discuss expansion and ways to challenge U.S. dominance in the global economy.
Over the last several decades, China has been pumping resources into Africa. The country has invested hundreds of billions of dollars across the continent, ranging in everything from transportation and infrastructure to real estate and technology.
Large African infrastructure projects would be viewed as risky by any traditional bank and would therefore struggle to get financed, but China's Export-Import Bank doesn't care. This bank will give low-interest or no-interest loans to African countries so they can build these trains or dams or other projects.
China and Africa can forge an even stronger, comprehensive strategic and cooperative partnership.
China touts the fact that their foreign investment and aid is no strings attached, with no requirements on factors like respect of human rights or democratic elections.
We do not interfere in the internal affairs of African countries, impose our will on African countries, or attach any political conditions on economic aid.
We've already seen that Chinese investments in Chinese infrastructure projects have been linked to increasing Chinese influence within the host country ruling elite. That may end up becoming somewhat of a leverage point for China to push some of these countries or ruling elites to side with China on critical issues that are important to the U.S. or to its allies.
When it comes to global influence, the European Union is definitely not one to take a back seat. With China expanding its reach into Africa through hefty investments, the EU has been gearing up to defend its turf. Picture it like a heavyweight bout, with the EU and China duking it out for dominance on the African continent. Europe's game plan? It's all about rolling out the big guns with its global gateway strategy, a move aimed at countering China's Belt and Road Initiative. This strategy isn't just a bluff. The EU has pledged a whopping 150 billion EUR to fund projects that will revamp digital connectivity, upgrade transport links, and bolster energy sources across Africa. It's a bit like a high-stakes poker game, with the EU going all in to win over African nations and show that it's not backing down from the competition. But why all the fuss? Well, for the EU, it's not just about protecting its turf. It's about offering African nations an alternative to Chinese investments. By beefing up its presence in Africa, the EU hopes to deepen its ties with African countries and show that it's a force to be reckoned with on the global stage. It's a bit like a strategic chess move, with the EU positioning itself to maintain its influence and keep China in check in the battle for Africa's future. In this complex dance of global geopolitics, Africa finds itself at a crucial crossroads, with BRICS countries strengthening their foothold on the continent and China emerging as a dominant force in African development. The European Union is facing stiff competition. The EU's ambitious plans to bolster its influence in Africa through major investment initiatives are being met head-on by China's Belt and Road Initiative and the expanding economic might of BRICS nations. As Africa weighs its options, it must decide whether to deepen ties with the EU or embrace stronger partnerships within the global South. The outcome of this battle for influence in Africa will shape the continent's economic landscape for decades to come. So, will Africa opt for the tried and tested partnerships with the EU, or will it seize the opportunities presented by the rising power of BRICS and China? The answer remains uncertain, but one thing is clear. Africa's choices today will define its trajectory in the global arena tomorrow. Join the conversation and share your thoughts on this unfolding saga in the comments section below. And to watch the latest geopolitical news, watch this video here.